Have you ever dreamed of having a basically endless supply of fresh, fragrant rosemary right at your fingertips? Well, you are in the right place. Today we're going to break down exactly how to take one single sprig of rosemary and turn it into a thriving, beautiful herb that will just keep giving back for years and years. Let's jump right in.
So first things first, let's get properly introduced. The fancy name is Rosmarinus officinalis, but its common name, rosemary, is just beautiful. It comes from the Latin rosmarinus, which means dew of the sea. How perfect is that? It paints a picture of its home on the sunny, rocky coasts of the Mediterranean. And yep, it's a tough little evergreen from the mint family, which means you get that amazing scent all year long.
All right, here's the plan for our journey together. We'll kick things off with what rosemary actually is, then we'll move to the most important part, getting your plant started. After that, we're diving deep into creating the perfect environment, all the essential care tips, how to solve common problems, and then the best part, harvesting and actually using this incredible herb.
So what is this aromatic wonder plant really? Well, it's so much more than just a kitchen herb. It's actually a super tough, really versatile shrub that looks absolutely beautiful in a garden or even just sitting on a patio.
You know, rosemary generally comes in two main styles. First, you've got your upright types. These are the ones that grow vertically like a classic shrub. And trust me, they can get pretty big, almost like a small tree over time. Then you have the crawling or trailing kinds, which are just fantastic as a fragrant ground cover that spreads out horizontally. Which one's for you? It really just depends on the space you're working with.
Okay, let's talk about what is, hands down, the most important choice you're going to make. Seriously, how you decide to start your rosemary journey is probably the biggest factor in your success.
And that choice comes down to this: cuttings versus seeds. And listen, I'm going to save you a ton of headache right now. Cuttings are the only way to go. It is so much faster and way more reliable. You're basically making a perfect little clone of a healthy plant, and you'll see new roots in just a couple of weeks. Seeds, on the other hand, they are just famously difficult, super slow to germinate, and the success rate is really low. So please, if you take one thing away, it's this: start with a cutting.
So how do you actually do it? It's ridiculously easy. First, just snip off a healthy green stem. You want the new growth, not the old woody stuff, about 6 to 8 inches long. Next, and this part's really important, you need to strip the leaves off the bottom half of that stem. Just run your fingers down and they'll pop right off. Then, you just stick it in a jar of water. Make sure the water comes up to just below where the leaves start. And that's it. In 2 or 3 weeks, you'll start to see these little white roots magically appear. Once you've got a few good ones growing, it's ready for a pot of soil.
All right, so you've got a rooted cutting. High five! Now it's time to give it the perfect home. Getting these conditions just right is the secret to turning a normal little plant into what some gardeners call a monster grower.
And rule number 1 is sun. Rosemary is a total sun worshiper. I'm talking a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct, blazing sun every single day. This is completely non-negotiable. If you're trying to grow it indoors, it has to be in the absolute sunniest window you own, no question.
This brings us to the second, and I would argue the most critical rule of all. If there is one thing rosemary absolutely hates, it's having wet feet. It just can't stand sitting in soggy soil. Remember, it's from those dry, rocky Mediterranean hillsides, so standing in water is a guaranteed way to kill it. Excellent drainage isn't just a nice idea, it's a must. So to get that perfect drainage, you need the right setup. The soil should be slightly acidic, right around a pH of 6 to 7. You want to use a sandy, gritty potting mix. And don't be shy about adding extra sand or perlite to really open it up and let that water flow through. As for the pot, terracotta is your best friend. Seriously. The clay is porous, which means it literally breathes and helps pull extra moisture away from the roots. It's perfect.
Okay, your new plant is all potted up in a sunny spot. Perfect. Now let's talk about the day-to-day care that's going to keep it bushy, happy, and pumping out flavor for years and years. Now, I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again because it is that important. The number one way people kill their rosemary is by overwatering. They just love it to death. So here's the rule. Always, always stick your finger down into the soil. If the top inch or two isn't totally dry to the touch, just walk away. Do not water it. It is so much better to be a little thirsty than it is to be drowning. Now, pruning is your secret weapon for getting a nice, compact, bushy plant instead of a tall, woody, leggy one. Trimming it regularly tells it to grow more leaves, but
And this is the golden rule: never, ever chop off more than 1/3 of the whole plant at one time. If you do that, it can send the plant into shock, and you might actually lose it. So the takeaway is, prune often, but prune gently.
Look, even if you do everything right, sometimes little problems pop up. But don't you worry. Most of the common issues are really easy to spot and even easier to fix.
Okay, think of this as your quick little diagnostic chart. Are the leaves turning yellow? 9 times out of 10, that's overwatering. Cut back and check your drainage holes. Seeing a white, dusty film on the leaves? That's probably powdery mildew, which means it needs better air circulation. Brown, crusty tips? Your plant is thirsty. Give it a really deep drink of water. And if the leaves feel kind of sticky, you've probably got some little pests like aphids. Now, rosemary is naturally pest-resistant, but a stress plant can still get them. A little bit of neem oil or even just soapy water usually takes care of it right away.
Now, for all of you in colder climates, listen up, because this is super important. Rosemary is tough, but it's not invincible. If you live in what's called USDA Hardiness Zone 6, or anywhere colder than that, your plant is probably not going to make it through the winter outside. But the solution is so simple. Just grow it in a pot and bring it inside before that first big frost hits.
We've put in the work, we've solved the little problems, and now it is time for the payoff. Let's talk about how to harvest all of that amazing, fragrant rosemary.
Harvesting couldn't be easier. You literally just snip off a few sprigs whenever you need them. And hey, guess what? That counts as the regular pruning we just talked about. If you want to keep it fresh for a few days, wrap the sprigs in a damp paper towel and stick them in the fridge. For long-term storage, tie them into little bundles, hang them upside down somewhere cool and dry. And once they're completely brittle, you can strip the leaves off and keep them in an airtight jar for months. So, what do you do with it all? I mean, this herb is a total powerhouse. In the kitchen, it's a classic for roasts and stews and amazing breads. Health-wise, it's loaded with antioxidants and vitamins. And get this, in the garden itself, those strong essential oils that smell so good to us actually repel pests like cabbage moths and mosquitoes, making it a fantastic little helper for your other plants. And of course, just a quick and important disclaimer here. While rosemary has all these amazing properties, all the information we've talked about is just for educational purposes. It's not medical advice. For any real health concerns, you should always talk to a healthcare professional. So there you have it. You now have everything you need to know to grow a beautiful, perennial herb that can literally live for decades, providing you with all the flavor and fragrance you could ever want. So, I guess there's only one question left. What are you going to do with your unlimited supply?